So house just makes me feel to this day happy, and my inner child, of course, is like, whoa, we're gonna go play. My body's happy because it's moving, it's still dancing and still having a good time. The only thing is, as you get older, that you need more sleep the next day. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's it, but it makes me happy, and I'm really happy that I got that tape, and I don't know what my life would have been like if I did not get deep into house like I did.
Today is Monday, April 10th, 2023. Who are we speaking with?
Liza Sellers.
Perfect. Let me share my screen. Give me a moment.
Oh.
Tell me about this. What, where, when, why, and how are you feeling?
So that was at the Winter Music Conference. And to be very, very honest with you, I went to that party because I had a bad day that day.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, this bad day is gonna go get released at this party. I wish I could remember the party. And I think I was a couple of years in deep with Mother Cat, having met her, my sister and I, Shirley Mate. So we went to Miami to support a couple of their things. And then this was, I wish I could remember the party.
I think it might have been Lou Gorbea spinning.
Yeah. And so
it might have been Ashe.
It could have been Ashe. And that's the thing, like I had a bad day and I'm like, how can I not bring myself to get better to this party? Because
Do you remember what the bad day was, or do you want to talk about it?
I mean, I guess I'll be honest. It was just the day where my identity was being challenged. And when you stand in integrity, you just got to take hits. So it was like, okay, goodbye. You know what I mean? So it was just like a little frustration with people or a person trying to remold.
Understood.
So I was like, I'm going to go to this party because that's what we're here for. You know what I mean? This is supposed to be a joyous occasion. So I went into the party. Of course, we're dancing. That's what we do. We dance, we sing, we get joyous. That's the medicine. And I trust Mother Cat. So, up here, there's a term that a brother of ours, Mizant, uses, and it's spirit dancers. So up here, and I'm sure in every city, but that's where I've heard the term here. You'll see people dancing and they're dancing, but then you can see them either getting mounted or being completely letting go and letting the music take over them and defining themselves through their movements. When you get people like that dancing together, it's an upliftment. It's a sermon. It's spiritual. It's all these wonderful things. It's out of body. It's the purpose, So when it comes to being around Mother Cat, I feel like she dances with that intention as well, like a medicine woman. And I know that I take music and dance as medicinal as well. So I gave myself to her in that moment and her tambourine. So every time I see that picture, I remember that this was a healing. This was a thrown in the river baptism, our way, a house head way, a club head way. And I love her, honor her, cherish her. And when I met her, I told her that she is a role model and a leader and, all these wonderful things that people should see her as based on everything that she's done. So I have a ton of respect for her, which is why I could so freely just give myself, trust her.
No, that's awesome. I remember being there that day. It was an afternoon party, I remember. And both of y'all were in the zone. Like, I don't remember. I wish there's like a live recording of Lou of that day, because the music took over and then it was just instantaneous. So Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing.
Yeah.
Um, let's start from the beginning. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Oh, so I was born in a mill city in Massachusetts called Lowell. And I lived there for a year, and then I moved to a sister city right next door called Lawrence,
Mhm.
which is also a mill city. So it's like big immigrant city. But like when the Puritans landed and the industrial area started, all the Irish and English and all those folks went up there to work in these mills. And by the 70s, it turned into heavy Puerto Rican and Dominican. So now it's a Caribbean city. It's still a city of immigrants. So that's where I grew up. I grew up in Lawrence, Mass.
Um, Side note, what's it like to be a person of color in the Boston area versus like New York or other cities?
I will always be honest, and it is testing of the nerves. It tests you.
Explain that, please.
So we just had an incident last week. You know what I mean? So
What was the incident?
sure, I'm just trying I'm trying to
Oh, sorry,
verbalize it without getting
sorry,
hot.
sorry,
Um,
sorry.
so yeah, so I guess the incident is, it's an example of an attitude up here, right? So I people of color, the term to me is just a switch of colored people. So I just try to say us or we, you know what I mean? So we are spoken to up here in ways that are very disrespectful. We're spoken to as children, we're spoken to as less than, on and on and on. So that's what I mean. It tests your nerves. So you're standing there and you're like, okay, so by pattern, if I react, I'm the problem. You understand? So we're always put in this position where it's like, I've got 30 ways that I'm murdering you right now, but I'm smiling and I'm letting this diffuse. So it's always about, and again, what I was saying earlier, it's about standing in your integrity.
Mhm.
So up here, you get, we're just, I personally and friends of mine as well, I'm not lying about this.
Mhm.
I've seen it happen. It's happened to me. It just is what it is. This particular incident, we had gone somewhere and we were given instructions by someone who was running an event. So we started moving according to the instructions, and the organizer didn't speak to the bartender, who happened to be a white woman, and she just ran up to all of our faces and was like, excuse me, in front of people. So there's a way of speaking to people. First of all, that's not professional. Whether you're a white woman or anybody, you're not being professional. You understand what I'm saying? So you're already in the wrong. So 1A is that you don't just walk up to people and scream at them. I'm not in your house. I'm not breaking your china. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm here doing something that I was told I could do. So there's these airs that people carry with them that are very, I think, violent. It can incite violence. But for us, we just need to kindly, one person that we were with spoke to her directly and was like, you do not speak to adults that way. And, she went from actually saying, take a chill pill, to zipping it. So being up here, it's very, it's thin ice, and we got to find our own spaces. You know what I mean? And when we find our own spaces, we cherish them. They're home. But there's still, even in finding those spaces, there's still going up against that. So, but we make it happen. Nobody gets hurt. They get spoken to in a way that it's like, and we hope you learn that the next time you feel that way, you do not speak to people that way.
Mhm.
So that's how it is up here. Exhausting.
Wow, wow, wow. Um, Tell us about music in the household. What kind of music did you listen to or was around the house when you were growing up?
So I'm really lucky because my mom used to play really, really old ballads, like Latin ballads, Spanish ballads from like the 40s and 50s. So the first music I can remember hearing is just like these big Spanish ballads, so romantic, you know. and so calming, you know. And then of course salsa, which is a number. So I got 1A, 1A, 1B, 1C, you know, they're all number one to me. So then lots of salsa. I always say that I go to the Church of Fania, and Hector Lavoe's my preacher. You know,
I love that.
That's who raised me in church. Yeah, they saved my life, you know, because when you're growing up in a city like Lawrence and you're hearing, even though the music was 25, 30 years before when I started listening to it, it still relates. You know what I mean? The struggle's still there. The stuff is still there. And then I'm so lucky that I'm a 70s and 80s baby, because I got to be around when freestyle was born and hip hop was born and house was born. So growing up in Lawrence, since it's heavy Latino, that sounds so prejudicial, but it's true. There were a lot of Latinos, so there was freestyle. You know what I mean? I started listening to freestyle music because the older kids were playing it out of their car windows. And so I would be looking around like, what was that? What was that? What was that? Let me record that tape, you know? Give me a copy of that. And then in the 8th grade, somebody, you know, went to New York with their parents or whatever and was like, oh, I don't like this, but I know you like freestyle. Because everyone around me was mostly into hip hop, I felt like Run DMC and all these groups that were coming out. But for me, I was like, that's not for me. You know what I mean? I'm still listening to salsa and the ballads, and hip hop's great. But the way you move to salsa, you know, and that's what I was seeing in my house, the dance with salsa, you know, for hip hop, it's like this, but I'm used to doing all this, you know? So freestyle for me was more like, oh, word, this is my speed. I can jump to this. So the friend gave me the tape. I was like, I don't like this music. You may like it. And it turned up being a house tape. And I was like, I love whatever this is. I got to find out what this is. So then from the 8th grade through now, the rest of my life, it's been house and still salsa and freestyle. I'll adore to the end. And then all types of music that just sounds gorgeous.
How does house music make you feel?
So I'm 47 years old, right? And there's something about club kids that, you know, that's why I start with my age. People feel like when you're a certain age, you need to stop doing certain things. So there's something youthful about loving the things in your 40th decade, your 4th decade, your 5th decade that you loved as a child. So it's not that I'm holding on to my youth, but when I listen to house, I still feel fresh. You know, I still feel like it's a new day, like there's something exciting, like there's electricity in the air, because that's how it's always made me feel. It's always given me this excitement, like, what am I going to hear? You know, I always pay attention to the production, the vocalists, everything is like so intricate. So that's when people are like, oh, all you do is listen to that. That's all it does. I'm like, yeah, that's what you think that's all it's doing. You know, and as the music has evolved, it's, you know, in sophistication, I still listen to, you know, early 80s stuff, because even that drum machines and all that stuff sounded dope, you know, had its own pattern. This math was happening. So house just makes me feel to this day happy. And my inner child, of course, is like, whoa, we're going to go play. My body's happy because it's moving, you know, it's still dancing and still having a good time. The only thing is, as you get older, that you need more sleep the next day. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's it. But it makes me happy, and I'm really happy that I got that tape. And I don't know what my life would have been like if I did not get deep into house like I did.
Do you remember who gave you that tape, and have you closed the loop and let them know how that changed your life?
I wish I could. I wish I could. So I think my memory was shot even then. You know, I mean, I'm the firstborn, so firstborns are just, you know, we're given a lot of duties. So I wish I could. I remember that the tape started with a sample from Scarface. So here I am listening to freestyle music with no curses. And then here comes this tape, and it starts with the effing Diaz brothers, you know, squash them like cockroaches. I'm like, what is this? And then it just turned into all this stuff that I'm like, what is this? and then as I bought more tapes, you go to the bodegas and you see the tape, the wall of tapes, and it says freestyle, salsa, merengue. And I'm like, house, one of those, because in our city, they'd go to New York, they'd get the stuff, they'd put it on their walls and then they'd sell them. Okay. So, I was getting my musical education from from the bodegas, but I don't know who the tape was. And then when I watched Scarface for the first time and I heard the line, I'm like, like, oh, I used to hear that all the time. Yeah.
That's great. Tell us about going to the under 21 clubs.
Oh, those were a blast. I mean, how do I say this? They were boring musically to me because I don't listen to the radio. But they were a blast because the music was loud and the lights were great. And that's where I fell in love with the space of a club. And so I was always waiting for like, lost in a world where you're the hero, the house tracks that crossed over to the radio. I was waiting for that 15-minute set, where I can hear the stuff, the groove that I liked coming out of those speakers. So it'd be fun, you'd go with friends, you're hanging out with your friends, and that's great. But they go in there, they dance with the dudes and they do the thing, and and I'd be like, just waiting for a couple of tracks. You know what I mean? Like this is so it was fun to get the experience of club life, but for me as a clubber, I've never been in the mentality, and I'm not saying children were, but the mentality of a meat market, right? So it's never been the mentality of I'm gonna go out and meet somebody. It's always been like, I can't wait to hear what they're gonna play tonight. Same thing there, so it was fun, it was adventurous, it was cute.
Do you remember some of the names of the clubs?
Bahama Beach Club was the big one up here. They had one in New Hampshire and one in some seaside city, I think. The one in the seaside city was the major one, the bigger one. And then there was some place next to Lawrence called Methuen. The city was called Methuen, but I can't remember that club spot, that club's name.
And then you said you hung out with DJ House.
Yeah.
Tell us about DJ House.
So his real name is Mikey, and to me, he's iconic and legendary because a lot of us in Lawrence would have never gotten the parties that we got back then if it wasn't for him. So he was the dance hall and the hip hop and the house and the freestyle, but his love was house. That's why, he went by DJ House. So when we found each other, we're like, you like house? You like house? It was like, you too? As much as we do, so we were definitely those kids, because we were kids, 15, 16, 17, 18, that were studying, reading the vinyl, reading the label, buying tapes for me, buying tapes and reading the whole thing and seeing who I see on this tape that works on something else, so I can start connecting music and, just researching what else they've done, where else they go, what other label. And we just kept expanding our brains around, producers and labels and singers and musicians. And he was big on cities. This is the Detroit sound, this is the Chicago sound, so I was getting an education while hanging out with my friend. He'd go out, he'd buy records, and he'd be like, yo, I got a bunch of records, but new records, I'm on my way. So I'd leave with a fresh tape.
Wow.
So sometimes it even turned into, I get to go through the crates and say, I want to tape all these records. You know what I mean? So he'd make a live mix. And then I just started buying my own vinyl. I went from tapes to buying my own vinyl. And then he'd let me play on the tables. So again, I don't know where I'd be right now if I didn't get that tape. I don't know where I'd be right now if I didn't hang out with Mikey. You know what I mean? Based on the experience. It literally felt like a weekly, Saturday. It was just on the calendar. No matter what you were doing, that was going to happen. We were going to listen to music together.
Is he still in the scene? Does he still DJ?
He still DJs, but not broadly, not out. So, you can be going this way and then the track goes this way. You know what I mean? But if there's ever a place and time where he could guest, then he would absolutely get the invitation.
Mm. So you went to your first all-house club in 1993, the Loft in Boston. Tell us about because there's so many lofts. There's a loft.
Yeah.
There's like a Paul Trouble Anderson loft in London. There's a David Mancuso loft in New York. I didn't even know there was a loft in Boston. Tell us about that.
So I ended up going to the Loft in 93, but I think that club opened, oh my God, I'm probably gonna be wrong, maybe 2 years before that, 3 years before that. And so my prom date, Babatunde, when we went to prom, he was a little bit older than me. He was in college. They played those house tracks that I was talking about, the radio ones. And I'm in my dress, doing my dance. And he's like, oh, you like house? I'm like, yeah, I like house. And he's like, yo, we got to go to this club next week called The Loft. And I'm like, easy. You know what I mean? Let's go. Because by then I'm already going to clubs. So it's in my head already what I'm walking into. And then the next week, he brings me to The Loft. And I'm like, oh, this is it. I am here forever. I'm never missing a night. This was the first club I've ever been to that played nothing but house music. Nothing but house music. It's the only club, the first club I should say that I ever went to that had nothing but house dancers. So there was no, now we're gonna play some Color Me Bad. Do you understand what I'm saying? There was no, now we're gonna switch things up and the bodies are gonna move differently and you guys take a break. It was like the second you walked in, it was on from midnight to 6 a.m. on. And I found home. I was like, oh, that's it. This is my tree house. I'm gonna be here every Friday. And I made friends there that I'm still friends with and I'm throwing gigs with now. You know what I mean? Like it just created a family. Like that's what I mean. I found home, I found family. I was able to, keep creating myself. You know, you have a self-identity. And so when folks are like, you're too much into this, that's not normal, you're weird. And you're like, but that's me. You know, so finding a place that had the music that I was hearing by myself with my friends, you know, and now here I am, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to dive in deeper. Now this is it. Now I'm for sure a house head. Now I found a house club. You know what I mean? Now I'm going to stay here and learn even more. And I just went in and danced and danced and danced and danced and danced and danced and danced. And eventually, you know, I got a membership from, you know, because they handed out memberships. So one of the promoters saw me and was like, here you go. I'm like, thank you very much. You know what I mean? I'm in here now. Yeah, and just again, back to the identity, it also helped me get more comfortable in dancing, you know, because I'm definitely that person, like many of us, who find a corner, you know what I mean? And it's just us in our zone in the corner or get in front of the speaker, not so much the social dance of it, you know? So, you know, you got your ciphers and you gig with your friends. So I partake in all of that throughout the night. But when I went to the Loft, since I didn't know anybody, it was just, you know, me over here in this little corner having the time of my life. And then when I go, you know, witness the ciphers and social dance, that's when it was like, hey, you know, and so it was a great balance. And then I became friends with one of its residents, and I got a great musical education and behind the scenes and entertainment, working with him for like 20 years. So yeah, I mean, longevity, you know, with a lot of folks that I met there. So yeah, and it was literally like take a 10 p.m. train from Lawrence, an hour ride to Boston, and then hang out in the subway station and wait till midnight. And then head over there and be like, hi, you know, and then wait till 6 a.m. and then go back to the train station and wait for like the 7:30 train, all euphoric, you know, and smelly and just like, word, I can't hear. This was a blast. Get on the train, go home, and just wake up Saturday and, you know, in your youth, then see what's happening Saturday night.
Wow. Tell us more about the Loft. Where in Boston was it? Describe the crowd. Was it a big
Sure.
venue, a small venue, the sound system? Who were the DJs?
I will walk you through it like the second time I was there. So the first time I was there, I went with Babatunde, and I was more taken aback by the glory of it. So my second time there.
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
So for me, again, the only clubs I had gone to were commercial clubs, commercial under 21 clubs. So when I walked in there and I saw misfits and culture and rebels and individuality, and hear all this music and watch all these people tell us who they are through their body, I was like, oh yes, like this is what the world needs. It's so not serious in here, but it's so severe. You know what I mean? Like, this is dope. I fell in love. I'm still in love with it. You know what I mean? With that particular time, I feel very fortunate that I was able to experience it. And I know that everybody who walks into a scene for the first time has their own moment. The era is different, the music's different, everything is different. So I just feel fortunate with the way things align, being born in 75. You know what I mean? I'm so happy that I got to see things, before they launched to where they are now. But the Loft was in the South End, behind the Back Bay Station. And so the Back Bay Station is a train hub. You got your subways, you got what we call the Purple Line, which is your Amtrak and your commuter rail. And the Back Bay is a very ritzy area, and the Loft was in an alley. So you get off the train, you go through the backside, and then here's this little alley, and here's this unassuming brick building, that has like a line of youth, just happy youth waiting to get in. And, from what I can remember, the door people were always friendly, not like the folks I was mentioning earlier. So we were definitely welcomed. We definitely felt, like we were home, like we were safe. The thing that worried me, and I think other people, you could bring it up with them about the stairs at the Boston Loft, is that it always felt like you were about to fall through the stairs. The stairs didn't feel safe. You know what I mean? So you're walking up the stairs and you're like, today's the day I may die. You know what I mean? Going up the stairs, but I'm still coming up these stairs. So they were just, who knows what the building looked like in daylight with the light, with the lights on, And then so it was the first floor. So you'd walk in, you'd go up to the stairs. So that first level was, there are so many terms: the deep floor, the soulful house, the black and brown sound, and then you walk up, and that was the techno room, which had its own vibe, its own life, and then the top would the roof where people would go smoke and whatever. And I think I don't know if the second floor had it, but the first floor had a juice bar. So, part of the deal was no alcohol, easy, like we're here for the music. So it was, just juice and water. So, you'd walk up the rickety stairs, you'd pray for your life, and you'd pick your room. And, I'd go into the first floor, and it was DJ Bruno, Armand Van Helden, and Francis, DJ Fran, which I can't remember the name of his collective, but he opened a record store with his partner Paul.
Mhm.
And then Armand Van Helden, is Armand
Yeah.
Van Helden. And then, DJ Bruno out here is DJ Bruno. You know what I mean? So those were the three conductors when I got there. And I believe they were the original residents. So, you'd walk in, and here's a bench, and you'd see people there chilling all night, either listening to music or taking their break. They had a main floor, which, in front of the booth, the main floor. And then it had this little cut next to the booth that had a speaker, that had a little stage, and a big ass cypher used to open there. Like, that's where the dudes, and of course it was majority men dancing then, that's where the dudes would get open, So I would be on the stage because the speaker was there, vibing and doing my own thing. And then
Explain what you mean by get open.
So just like the picture with Kat.
No,
right?
I know what you mean, but I'm just saying for the broader audience.
For the folks, sure.
Yeah.
So for the folks would be like, so there's a couple of ways, right? So if you're a jogger and you're jogging and that adrenaline hits its peak, you got open. You're open on your run now. So for me, when I say open, is that you have reached your level and your top is open. Like, you are no longer thinking, if you even were, about what you look like, or, are your keys going to fall out of your pocket? You need to have that moment with that song or with that person, because you're open, you're receiving, and you're giving. So for me, when I say open for them, they used to get amped. You know what I mean? And they still get amped. I'm still hanging out with some of these dancers that are still getting open. And it was always great to watch. So for me, this is the place where I also learned about ciphers and battling and, and all that stuff. So it was great because nobody was dancing house where I was. It was just me in my bedroom.
Wow. How fortuitous were you to find your home?
I'm so lucky. That's why I say his name, Babatunde. He brought me there and I was like, yo, you have just changed my life. And that's the only time he ever went with me. He just went back to college, this is the thing. And I was like, you gave me the world.
Wow. You tell us about being on the street team for Biscuithead Productions.
Sure. So that was DJ Bruno. And he was one of the residents of the Loft. And so he goes now by DJ Bruno Productions, but Biscuithead will always be one of his first and brands and labels. So Bruno and I, we hit it off great. We both love music, dancer, DJ. Love to set. He's still a powerful DJ. He's still super dope. And in my youth, you have the energy, you have the time, you got nothing to do. So he was like, yo, you're always here, you love the music so much, why don't you come out, to these clubs and hang out flyers while I'm spinning? Best job ever. You know what I mean? Like, you telling me I get to go at the commercial clubs, I get to hang out at the commercial clubs and pass out flyers and support, you who, I adore, and have fun, easy peasy. So sometimes we'd be on the streets, just walking around, which is the personal touch. Hey. Sometimes you'd go to the club and it'd be like, hey. Sometimes you'd have to get out of the club like half an hour before it closes to put it under windshield wipers. Like, this is all pre-social media. This is a lot of work. Yeah. It's not just hitting posts. You know what I mean? You're out there working the door, just being trusted by him meant the world to me. You know what I mean? You're trusting me with your flyers, with your door. He had a team of people. We were a team. He had a record store. So it was incredible to be able to support someone who, continues to be so large and in charge, out here, and did so much and, continues to do so much.
Let's switch topics and talk about house dance. What is your intention when you dance?
So I would say that I've gone through an evolution. So I listen to music mathematically. So when I start dancing, so because to me, I listen to as many instruments as possible that are happening. And that's what I enjoyed about house. That house had, it would have this, and then you get and then you get some keys, and it's this build. So for me, because I'm a nerd, thank you so much, I love it, I would just listen to when's the switch and where's that and where did that instrument go and what's happening. So that's what I mean with studying the music. So when I would dance, it's always like, what instrument or what pattern am I going to get into? And not stay focused on that, because then something is going to take me somewhere else. So when I started dancing, because there was so much going on in the music that my mind was blown, I couldn't even get, I'm married to a house dancer, and so I'm learning this whole new world of house dance by being married that I didn't know existed, even though I've been a househead this whole time. So I didn't know there were name steps and I didn't know all of that. So when I started dancing, I wasn't doing what people call house dance. And I've actually been told, you're not a house dancer. Why, thank you. Because for me, it's really been about getting up and what's going to grab me and what's going to move me and how am I going to do that the way it's being called for. So when I started dancing, it was, some bops, dancing to the music. And then, oh, that just changed. Oh, well, now we're here, you know what I mean? And having a blast with it and then listening to the mix, listening to the blend and just appreciating all of it. So I've always been kind of a free spirit when it comes to dancing, house music. I'm not so structured. I incorporate salsa into it. I incorporate flamenco is what I'm told into it. I incorporate, every single genetic line that's running through me into it. And that's what I mean with evolution, because it went from bopping in my room to kind of knowing what I love to do when I dance, what feels good, to, hitting a time and place in my spiritual evolution where I was like, I'm going to dance for those in my bloodline who loved to dance. I can feel them. And, to be here now where it's like I'm learning this new body, because you've gotten older, so you must care for yourself, in different ways. And I'm also my 3rd year in remission. So, I'm getting into, I have to take care of myself and learning how to move the way I want to move and be okay with it not being perhaps not as passionately as it used to be, but that's because of the energy level, So house dance to me is super personal, which is why I brought up when someone told me I wasn't a house dancer, because you can't tell anybody anywhere that they're not anything. So if you see someone who coming out to a house club and all they're doing is this all night, that's how they want to dance to house. You leave that alone. You leave them be. They're having the time of their life. But I really respect a lot of people who take the craft seriously and study and train. So I give respect to the free spirits and then the folks that are like so disciplined.
Let's talk about Boston. Do Boston house heads consider themselves more New York or more Chicago or neither?
I would say neither. I'm going to be super honest. And this would be a great debate to have. We are a small city. Absolutely. Small, big city, we're walkable. I mean, we're small. Our community represents that, it reflects it. But we've been raised by some amazing DJs out here that have played, Chicago house, New York house. And I think that these, these fathers and mothers, they've played so much that we just have our own sound that embraces all regions. So I don't know how you would define that. You'll hear vocals out here, you'll hear deep tech out here, you'll hear, garage out here, you'll hear so many different sounds out here. And that's because that's the way our jocks have always been. If it's hot, it's getting played, if I were to say that Boston has its own sound, we did have producers out here, the Shadow Kings. Kelvin Sylvester now has Brukel Music, and Leo Alarcon, who has Playroom Boston. So there are some producers that, Armand Van Helden came from here. There are some producers that came out here that perhaps you can say they're the Boston sound. But if you ask that question, which I think is a great question, you'll maybe get the same response that we're our own thing, and our own thing is kind of a potpourri of everything.
Does the term soulful house mean anything in Boston?
Yeah, it does. You'll see it on all the flyers.
Really?
Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
But by definition, right? By definition, it's like, what does that mean? So when I hear soulful house, I think more warm bass lines, and vocals, which sure, vocals has its own category, it's vocals, but sometimes soulful house is bringing it out of you through a song, through a singer. When I hear soulful house, I think soul, the words there already, but what I mean by soul, that's why I say the first thing I say is the warm bass lines. It's just moving you and grooving you, not anything that's too loud or electronic, so there's really no beep boop pop pops. You've got soul. You have, some, maybe a maraca or a tambourine, or live drums, or a great guitar, something that's coming from someone's ache, so when I hear soulful, I just think the stuff that again, that's intentional for people to get open.
You mentioned you're married to a house dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you each look at house differently?
No, we share a passion for it. So if it's differently, we're sharing, this is what I love about it, and this is what I love about it. I'm definitely learning. Again, I'm learning from his point of view and his world that I didn't even know, and then, he's seeing it from me, which is I take it and I kind of incorporate it into poetry events or, into other things. But we both love it passionately. We both love to discuss it, listen to it together, share music with each other, discover music together, and then of course dance. He's definitely go out and do his thing, do your thing. I'm doing my thing, and then we'll do some things together when we will dance together. So yeah, it's really wonderful to have married someone who shares a passion.
Talk to me about gender in house music and representation.
Thank God it's 2023, so that's one of the reasons why I read a lot of the linear notes and a lot of the labels on the vinyl. So every time there was a woman, it'd be like, oh, that name, like one of my mothers is La India, that's one of my mothers. So when I saw that she was a songwriter on tunes, I'm like, she writes songs too, alternate when I started buying her tapes, I'm like, this lady is bad. So I really appreciated the women that were coming out, that were writing their own songs, that it wasn't just about the producer. Sometimes it's just a song and there's a woman vocalist and she doesn't even get a feature. She's just a singer that went in the booth and blew up your record, So I was always looking for the women. And that's why I said, thank God for 2023, because, there are a lot of headline DJs and singers and producers and organizers and all these bad things. And I'm sure they've got stories about the hill, it's just so exhausting going up that hill. So my personal experience is that there's a lot of sexual harassment. There's a lot of liberties. Oh yeah, there's a lot of liberties. So it's exhausting in the whole, and I'm saying this to be honest, so that if there's anybody out there that loves something, men or women, and they're finding themselves around, predators or folks like that, don't let it detract you from what you love. It's not your fault. So, being a woman and going out and being out late and hanging around a lot of men, it just gets assumed, a lot of assumptions and a lot of liberties. So that was the first exhausting thing, that it's like, I don't know who you think you're talking to or who you think you're touching or what you think is going on here, but that's not the thing. So there's always the whole, let the bridge burn, and of course there's the being at the table, the round table of nights, and speaking and being spoken over. So you have to elevate your voice because you are also there. There's the whole, walking into a room to discuss business and it be trying to change it into something else. You know, so those are the things that I have found the most difficult, being put in positions that I'm not asking for, and um, being tried to be made like I'm the elephant in the room, like I'm not there. So I'm very fortunate though that has been like 5%.
Mm.
Like everyone that I've worked with or have encountered has been great and respectful, but in honoring them, I honor them. I still have to give the warning, because it would be awful for me to not speak a truth like that and then someone find themselves in that position, you know, and be surprised. Don't be surprised, just be ready, you know. But now with more women up here, which is why I give thanks, you know, it's unfortunate to have to say this, but there's a more seriousness around what a woman can bring to a table, you know. But it should not have taken, it shouldn't take anybody, you know, to run up a hill that's a lot, you know, longer than yours. You know what I mean? Or the stuff, the obstacles we need to go through. So, yeah, yeah. I'm actually playing a Mother's Day event with a roster of women, of moms, obviously, for 6 moms, which is fun. You know, so stuff like that is fun, but it's organized by a woman. You know, so the day that men will put something on for women, then maybe we'll say, oh, you know what I mean? Thank you for seeing us, and holding us up. But it's okay. We got each other, and we got really good men around us too.
What makes a great party?
And I'm gonna answer this as a patron. So every time I work events, I'll put on the hat as a curator, and I'll put on the hat as a patron. There's 2 ways you gotta see things. So for me as a patron, what makes it great is, for starters, for me, how we're being greeted at the door. For me, like if I come through the door and you're excited and you're happy, I already feel like the whole squad behind the place is ready. You know what I mean? Like everybody brought that good energy in. So the thing that happened a week ago, we just turned around and left. You know, we couldn't trust that we were going to enjoy ourselves because we got that salt. You know, the party ended up turning to be great, which is great for those. But for me, it would have been like, nah, I'm going to see it from the corner of my eye. I don't think so. So, you know, that's me. So, you know, the way you're greeted, the music always comes first. You know what I mean? So hoping that it's a DJ that that watches the floor. You know what I mean? That's not trying to force feed you. That's actually, you know, vibing with you. The space matters, even though we've partied in closets. You know what I mean? We will make a party happen in a small space. But if it's a small space, let it be sexy, let it be fun, let it, you know what I mean? Like, let it be alive. So that's what I mean by the space. Let the space look and feel great. And, you know, you really can't help who walks into parties, so you can't say the people, you know what I mean? But I think that's why it's the organizer's job to work with the staff and tell them to be gentle with the folks that are us that are going to be in there, that they may not be familiar with our lifestyles, you know. Another thing about being a woman is, you know, when you get the general public or you know, intoxicated people, and they're just trying to, excuse me, you know what I mean, walk by you. So we've had to talk to promoters and say, you know, I feel really gross at your party. I love your party, but you got to do something about these folks touching us. You know, like we can't do this. And they take care of it versus saying that to someone else and nothing gets done, you know? So to me, a great party is the respect you're giving your folks and the DJ being part of the party.
Tell us about Release Your Dance.
Well, so Release Your Dance is I think in 1994, Mikey House and I did our first party called La La Land in Lawrence. So La La Land was the first party I ever organized and held. And that's when I fell in love with it even more. That's when I was like, oh, I got to throw parties now. You know what I mean? This was dope. And so the Release Your Dance started in 2012 between me and Sammy. Sammy's a Loft head. I met him at the Loft. He's still a dancer now. We're still running Release together. And, you know, we were going to all these parties in Boston and parties. And we had hit our mid-30s. And we have been doing this, you know, him 20-something years, me, you know, something years too. And we're like, yo, we should try to throw our own party. You know, we should try to see what happens if we design something and he spins, you know, because he was crossing from dancer to DJ. And, you know, for me, the creativity of being a promoter is awesome. You know what I mean? You're hosting something for your friends, you know? So we drove around and we knocked on those doors. And then one place was like, sure. We're like, yes, we got a spot. And, you know, we launched on a Thursday. I think it was bi-weekly or monthly at this place called Asia, which is now gone, unfortunately. But, you know, happy for Mark and Patty. And it banged. It banged. And, you know, we call ourselves Loft babies because, you know, we were from the generation of the Loft. So we were some kids that was raised by the Lofts that are now throwing a party. And we offered what we would want. You know, so Sammy offered the sound, you know, and then I offered the warmth and, you know, the space and talking to the staff and being gentle with the staff and, you know what I mean? And just creating this environment where we're comfortable, you know, and we're going to have a good time. And everybody's understood here. So we've got folks that still come out from 2012. You know what I mean? We've got our loves and we've gone from venue to venue. And Sammy just organized an outdoor series last year to celebrate our 10 years. And this year we're relaunching the outdoor series. So Release Your Dance is by its name, just that, just come and dance, you know?
Tell us about ERATO and Central Underground.
ERATO was started with 5 of us. One person didn't stay, one person didn't stay, and some other folks stayed. So ERATO was, they used to go by TCC, but now it's Dende and Miss Tina. Now they're their own jocks. And Dende now plays at Central Underground. So ERATO was, I think we ran for 2.5 years, a monthly party. And the point of ERATO was for Dende and Miss Tina to share their sound. You know, they were the next generation. They were in their 20s, you know, so I completely believe in passing the torch over. Please pass it over. You know what I mean? And so, you know, the party was created for them to rise up, you know, into their sound. And they ripped it. It was a great party. For as long as it went, it was a great party. And then it shut down for its reasons. And then Central Underground, like maybe 7 months, a year later, we were brought to the table. One of the Bruno invited folks to the table and was like, I want to launch something. I want you guys to come to the table. So it was me and some other folks. And I got diagnosed and I had to go through my treatment. And so, you know, after treatment, I was like, I just physically can't do the late nights. So they're still rocking. It's still Dende and Diesel and Bruno and Sean. And so that party is in the venue where ERATO used to be. When you find a home out here as a promoter, that's pretty much going to be everybody's home because they're welcoming. You know, it's really difficult to get rooms out here. And so, you know, any party that I've been a part of as an organizer has been for the big picture, which is people's happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line. Like, I know how happy I am when I go to a party. So that's my personal focus.
What does the track Sueno Latino mean to you?
Oh, so I think I was 14 when I heard that. And I was like, oh my God, this woman's talking dirty. I know Spanish and I know what she's saying. And this sounds dope. So it's not that it was like turning me on or anything, but I was like, this this sensuality is romantic. Remember, I'm listening to like ballads, these heartbreak ballads, and then, you know, I hear this woman speaking in Spanish over this amazing beat, you know, that come to find out research is like E24, you know, E2E4, and which, you know, I'm completely enamored with already. So when I heard that track, I was like, what am I listening to? So she's talking stuff I shouldn't be hearing as a child, as far as I'm concerned. This beat is sick. And it's poetic. And I'm already a poet. So that track for me was like, I'm going to write over these instrumentals. And that's when I started playing my tapes and grabbing my notebooks and started writing poetry over music. That track completely opened my mind to what could be done with house music as a writer. I was only used to hearing singers, you know, 4 lines, chorus, 4 lines, chorus, bridge, chorus, out, you know. And then this, I was like, I could tell a story. Come on, I could be bilingual. I cherish that song. It changed my life.
You're also a recording artist, so you've got stuff on Seed Recordings, Utopia Boston Records, and Playroom Boston Records.
Yeah.
If people want to book you to perform or to work on their records, how do they get a hold of you?
So I am on Instagram, and it's LUNA.DEL.FLOR.LEAF. Luna del Feliz. Or Liza's Eye is 8@gmail.com.
Those are the questions that I had. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share about you or house music or Boston in general?
Oh, I love Boston. I'll say that. I love Boston. And I love house music. And the term house music sounds so simple. It means so much. Like there's such a history with that word. So when I say house music, I'm definitely talking about, you know, a lifestyle and a culture from the 70s and even before that, that got brought in here, that got brought here to the future. So yeah, I mean, I thank you, but all I can say is that, you know, I'm really happy with the life that I've been given and I've been able to have with house music, like the folks that I've met, the talent that I've been able to work with, the parties, the songs, the memories. And so for as childish as it sounds for people who don't get it, when they're like, you're going clubbing, you're going to a party, you're going clubbing, you know, I feel for folks who don't understand it, you know, and I love us for knowing what we're talking about and sharing it.
Well, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate hearing your story.
Oh, Emma.
All right. Have a good night.
Until I see you in person again, then yeah.
That's right. Exactly. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.